So I'll just share with you what I'm hearing from my friends in Tuscaloosa and Birmingham who have been around a long time, who watch this, and some are saying this reminds me. I'm quoting them now of 41 years ago. And Matt, I hate going back 41 years, especially to a guy that I'm not even sure is 40 years old. But that was 1982. In 1982 was Bear Bryant's last year, and they were number 2 in the country, and then but they made it to the middle of the season before it fell apart. This is the second week, and it feels. I mean, let's quit trying to decide whether the dynasty's over or not. Let's try to talk about this era and where that is, and it's starting to feel tenuous, and there's nothing Nick Saban can do about that. Last night was not going to change the season other than to prop Alabama up, but by losing to Texas, essentially it puts Alabama at the very far end of the ledge with no room for error. And it's hard to imagine, as we started this conversation, that they can be flawless the rest of the season. I mean, I don't know. I mean, their fans can make a case for it, but I'd love to know with what rationale or reason.
Yeah, and here's I think we probably know this for certain. We're accustomed to Alabama, even against SEC foes, coming out there and just beating the hell out of them. I don't know that in these games this year that Alabama's not going to be in a tight one for all 4 quarters. And how those look, close games, they're a coin flip. And what side Alabama's going to be on at the end of that coin flip remains to be seen. But look, I'm not going to get on here on Sunday morning and fall victim to hyperbole and say this was a change into the guard. I'll just say, and when we were watching with Dan Mullen and Joey, even Mullen said it. He's like, you know what? And Sark called a brilliant game early and often, because Dan Mullen pointed out, it's why I love watching games with the former head coach who was just in the game. When early on, when Sark and they were calling these screens out of the backfield and getting those running backs out, it was a 4-yard pass, turning an 8-9-yard gain. He looked at me and he goes, Nick Saban hates that kind of stuff, especially when he doesn't have the speed at safety or linebacker to go get those running backs. And he said they don't have the speed at those positions right now to come get those guys. And that says a lot.
Yeah, and Matt, to the bigger picture, when I heard somebody say today, this was now the 3rd time Nick Saban has lost to a former assistant, it's starting to become normal. We went all those years when not only was he beating assistants, he was averaging about 20-point margin. And now in 2 games into the 3rd season of this sect of he lost to Jimbo 2 years ago. He lost to he obviously lost to Kirby Smart, and now he's lost this game. And it won't be the last time he loses to a former assistant. And I think if you're Nick Saban this morning, you're trying to correct the problems, but you're also beginning to wonder how much damage could I be doing to my legacy? And I realize that sounds like an overreach and that sounds hyper, but it's really not, though. These things collapse very quickly, Matt. And fans need hope. Last year they lost to Tennessee on the final play in a game that we all know they should have won. I mean, that was absurd how that happened. And then the LSU game, they were the better team. They let it slip away in overtime. And even though Alabama almost lost 3 other games, including Texas, the fans hung their hat on, and Saban did too when he campaigned for the playoffs. We lost 2 games on the final play. We are, what are we, September 10th?
Yeah.
That's already been taken out of his repertoire. He lost by 10 points at home, and it should have been 20.
First double-digit loss as a head coach at home since 2003. And here, you want something symbolic of the loss. They didn't get beat with a big touchdown at the end of the game. They didn't get beat with Texas sacking Jalen Milroe. They ended the game. It was cemented in victory for Texas with a player for Alabama jumping offsides.
Yeah.
That's how the game was won. And if you're talking about end of an era or maybe the end of the legacy for Nick Saban there in Tuscaloosa, he does do commercials with a pretty popular head coach right now. I mean, is Tuscaloosa ready for prime? Oh, that's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
I mean, I had a colleague ask me today, and this is where we are on the morning after. Who do you think the top three candidates would be if, quote unquote, Nick Saban retired? And I don't know if Prime is on that list or not, but why not?
Well, are you kidding me? If I were now we're going to spin off into a tangent here, but that's what we do here on the YouTube channel. If I were a program of top 10 power, right? If I'm one of the most powerful programs in the country, and for whatever reason, a coaching switch is in the cards, Paul, Deion Sanders is my number one call, and I'm not even thinking twice about it. Like, why wouldn't you? I don't care who you are.
Yeah, when you well, and I'm not gonna get too deep into the weeds here. When I was trying to think of some of the names, I mean, they're all just nice coaches, but none of them have the star power. I mean, let's quite frankly, Nick Saban doesn't have the star power that Deion Sanders has right now.
I mean, this thing is like the way that he's taking. Look, Colorado could very well finish 2-10. They won't, but they could, right? And then whatever that shine. I have talked to so many people out west, and I've talked to everybody in this industry. What Deion has done is he has surrounded himself with a staff that is really, really good at football. His offensive coordinator, Sean Lewis, is going to get a job somewhere at some point. All he's done, Paul, is bring in talent, make everybody believe, roll out a football and win, and I am convinced of it. I'll say two things. One, if a big-time job comes open tomorrow, Deion Sanders will be the number one candidate. And I said this during commercial break at Sports Center, and I thought I had the whole staff have a heart attack. I said, you watch. NFL jobs are going to start being rumored to Deion. And don't think for a second Jerry Jones wouldn't love the splash of a Deion Sanders in his program with the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, that would Hard Knocks would have to camp out there for a while.